see we have a quorum, and can I declare the 124th Annual General Meeting of the SAIMM open as prescribed by the terms in our Constitution, Sam?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. We are pleased to welcome you to our second online annual general meeting. Please feel free to post any questions that you may have in the question and answer tab, and we'll address them during the proceedings. My name is Elias Matinde, and I am the Junior Vice President of the SAIMM. I welcome everyone. I extend a special welcome to our guests and our representatives of our sister institutes and other associations. I also extend special welcome to recipients of the SAIMM Awards, senior members of industry, honorary life fellows, past presidents, our members, other guests who may be online. If I miss someone, please allow me to say all protocols observed. Allow me to do a special welcome to our presidents of sister institutes and invested guests as follows. We have the Geological Society of South Africa, President Dr. Tanya Marshall, welcome. The Mineral Council of South Africa, CEO, Mr. Roger Baxter, you are welcome. The South African Council for Automation and Control, President John Barkel. We have the CEO of Sivanye Stillwater, Mr. Neil Froneman. You are welcome, sir. South African Council for Natural and Scientific Professions, President Dr. Jeda Botha. You are welcome. The South African Institute of Chemical Engineers, President Dr. David Lockhart. You are welcome. I also would like to welcome and acknowledge the past presidents who are attending this session today. We have Dr. Nick Baxter, please welcome. We have Larry Kramer, Andre Habas-Craig, Henry James, Rodney Jones, Roger Dixon, Jim Porter, Don Ross Watt, and Willem van Niekerk. We welcome all of you and thank you for being with us this afternoon. From now onwards, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague, Zelmia Botha. Over to you, Zelmia.
Thanks, Elias. I'm going to start us off with a confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the previous annual general meeting were published in a special edition of the AGM proceedings and sent to all members. So like Elias mentioned, by using the chat pane, may I please have a proposer that the minutes as printed be accepted as a true reflection of the meeting held on the 13th of August, 2020. Thank you very much, Martinez. Thank you very much, Russell. May I please have someone to second, also via the chat pane? Thank you very much, Rodney. Appreciate it. It is now, unfortunately, my very sad duty to announce the passing of the following members of the Institute. Our Honorary Life Fellows, Ferdi Kamasani Kalzulari and George Nisbet, also a past president. Our Fellows, Michael Martinson, Naveen Singh, Mpotlala, and then also one of our members, Anthony Bagnall. I ask you all to please observe a moment's silence in memory of the deceased, and in so doing, to extend our sincere condolences to the bereaved. Thank you, everyone. We now move on to our Honorary Life Fellowship Award. And the SAIMM has decided to award our Honorary Life Fellowship to Dr. Willem Funicar. Dr. Funicar's certificate will be posted to him. But for now, we would like to congratulate him for his outstanding service and support of the SAIMM over many years. Dr. Funicar is attending, so Dr. Funicar, we extend our very hearty congratulations to you on this achievement. Another one of our highlights is the Brigadier Stokes Memorial Award, and this award was instituted in 1980 to commemorate the outstanding contribution to the South African mining industry made by Brigadier Stokes, an Honorary Life Fellow and past president of this institute. This is a premier award of the SAIMM and is made to an individual for the very highest achievement in the South African mining and metallurgical industry. It gives me great pleasure to announce that this award for 2021 is to be made to Mr. Neil John Vroeneman. Alex du Plessis, who is with us today, will read the citation for Mr. Vroeneman. Alex, will you please take over from us?
Okay, thanks. I trust you can all hear me fine. It gives me great pleasure, and it's an honor to read the citation. Brigadier RSG Stokes, or the Brig, as he was commonly known, was, according to one biographer, and I quote, "a remarkable and resilient man with a superior intellect, inexhaustible energy, and an insatiable curiosity, who travelled widely and had many friends." It is indeed therefore fitting that the award is made this year to Neil John Vroeneman, as he, in addition to displaying these attributes, has brought a notably entrepreneurial and technically innovative approach to mining in South Africa. Neil was born in 1959 in Johannesburg, where he grew up. He matriculated from Northcliffe High School and studied mechanical engineering at the University of the Witwatersrand, graduating in 1981 with a BSc Mechanical Engineering degree in the Industrial Engineering option. In 1982, Neil was drafted into the South African Air Force for national service and completed officers training, finally achieving the rank of captain. This phase, together with his childhood dream of becoming a pilot, has resulted in Neil still actively aviating today as both a fixed-wing and helicopter pilot. Neil also used his time in the Air Force to complete the first 2 years of a 4-year BCom degree from the University of South Africa, which he studied by correspondence. During his full-time engineering degree, he displayed an entrepreneurial flair for buying and selling all manner of vehicles, from cars to boats, and also servicing them. He also raced them and was apparently blindingly quick in his hotted-up Datsun 1600 SSS. He was able, through his various business ventures, to largely support himself financially throughout his studies. Neil has always demonstrated a keen ability to recognize value where others don't, an ability that extends to people. Those who work with and for him regard him as a supportive and empowering leader who encourages his colleagues to develop to their full potential and, in many cases, to recognize and exploit latent talents that they didn't know they had. Neil was a Goldfields bursar, so after his national service, he started his junior engineer internship working on Lebanon and Gelkrol gold mines, obtaining his engineer certificate of competency for mines and works, and registering as a professional engineer. Neil was attracted by the appointment of Brian Gilbertson to Genman in 1989, where he took on a number of roles, including project management, consulting engineer for GenCold, and business development executive in West Africa. As consulting mechanical engineer, Neil introduced multi-skilling to the mining industry and led the implementation of the concept. He also embarked on obtaining a mine manager's certificate of competency and remains one of only a few engineers to hold both engineering and mining certificates of competency. Neil then joined longtime colleague from GenGold, Bernard Swanepoel, at Harmony Gold Mining Company as operations director. During this period, Neil and Bernard developed and implemented the Harmony Way, based on reducing the number of management levels and empowering people down to the working face. Critical to the implementation of the Harmony Way was a much more commercial approach to mining and mineral resource management. Aspects of this method of management are still in use at Harmony and have been applied by many other mining companies in South Africa. Neil was subsequently headhunted by JCI Limited, where he assumed the role of technical director. He was, however, not happy with the then corporate governance aspects of the company, and after only 5 months joined the new Goldfields, which had merged with GenGold as vice president and head of operations for the Kloof division, which included the historical mines of Venterspost, Lebanon, Leerdruin, and Kloof. Kloof remains in production today under Neil's stewardship as part of the Sibanye-Stillwater portfolio. Neil later established Sibanye-Stillwater's gold division head office at Lebanon Mine, something that he likens to describing a full circle and returning home. In April 2003, he was appointed CEO of Afflease Gold, which, through a series of reverse takeovers, became Gold One International in May 2009. He was primarily responsible for the creation of Uranium One, which was incorporated from the Afflease Gold uranium assets. A notable achievement during this period was the commissioning of the Modder East Gold Mine, the first new mine to be established on the far East Rand for about 30 years. Neil's approach to new technology was given full rein in the design of this mine, which has trackless access to footwall infrastructure and uses the then novel technologies of water-powered rock drills and emulsion explosives. The design also incorporates a vertical shaft dedicated to the transport of personnel, thereby separating the movement of people from that of rock, with significant safety benefits. Neil has always shown a great interest in new technology, both personally and professionally, and has demonstrated a knack for identifying technological strengths and weaknesses appropriately and employing them in situations where they can yield the most benefit. Another new mine built under Neil's leadership was Uranium One's Dominion Reefs projects, which incorporated trackless access declines and narrow reef breast stoping. Dominion Reefs was placed under care and maintenance in 2008, due largely to a slump in the uranium price. Neil still regards the closure of this mine and its later sale as one of his greatest disappointments. Neil remained CEO of Gold One until his appointment to the position of Executive Director and CEO of Sibanye Gold, which was formed at the beginning of 2013, when Goldfields combined its Kloof, Driefontein, and Beatrix assets into the new company. Between 2013 and 2016, Neil focused on transforming Sibanye Gold into a dependable and industry-leading dividend player with a credible operating base. The company then embarked on a visionary expansion phase, acquiring over the next 4 years the assets of Lonmin, Anglo-American Platinum's Rustenburg operations, Aquarius Platinum, and Stillwater in Montana in the USA. The company was renamed Sibanye-Stillwater and is currently the #1 global producer of platinum, rhodium, iridium, and erythium, and #2 to Norilsk nickel in palladium. The Stillwater acquisition transitions Sibanye-Stillwater into a leading global precious metals producer, being #3 internationally on a gold equivalent basis. Interestingly, Sibanye-Stillwater is the biggest taxpayer in Montana, indicating its leading mining position. Sibanye-Stillwater also holds a controlling stake in DRD. The benefits of these mergers have not only been the obvious financial ones, but have extended to the fields of technology and the adoption of best global practices in managing the environment and societal impacts of mining. In May 2016, Neil was elected to serve as Vice President of the Minerals Council of South Africa. While Neil's official view is that he's currently concentrating on bedding down the Sibanye-Stillwater merger and confirming the company's position as a reliable dividend payer, mining people around the world are looking expectantly to see what this dynamic mining entrepreneur and worthy recipient of the Brigadier Stokes Memorial Award for 2021 gets up to next. Neil is married to Roz, who he describes as being the person who has had the most influence in his career, and they have 3 children, 2 of whom also work with Neil at Sibanye-Stillwater. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. We appreciate that beautiful citation. As Mr. Vroneman is currently in the USA, his medal could not be presented to him before the AGM, but we recorded his acceptance speech prior to the AGM, which will now be played. Thank you, Sam.
Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm greatly honored that the Southern African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy Council has decided to select me as a recipient of the Brigadier Stokes Memorial Award for 2021. When I look at the list of past recipients comprising eminent individuals who have left an indelible mark on the South African mining industry, I feel deeply humbled to be joining such august company. Although my career has taken me into the realm of business leadership, I strive to remain faithful to my technical roots. I still look back fondly on the early stages of my career as a junior engineer, developing through the ranks on a structured development program. And I also cherish the practical mining experience I gained when I shifted tracks into the mining discipline to obtain my mine manager's certificate of competence. The time at the face spent to earn my blasting certificate gave me invaluable experience with unique insights into the world of mining. I have no doubt this provided the required foundation on which to build a rewarding career. When I meet with young professionals graduating from university who, with the impatience typical of youth and the modern generation, are seeking advice on how to get into top leadership positions, I feel obliged to impress on them the need to first gain a solid track record of experience as professionals in their fields. Even if this is not the most popular advice, I trust it will serve them well in constructing the necessary foundation on which to build their careers in mining and metallurgy. I think all members of this venerable institution would concur that operational excellence is at the heart of every successful mining company. And technical leadership has never been more important than it is now, as mines become technically more challenging and standards of performance become ever more exacting. To extract value from the mature resources that remain in the ground require substantial innovation, and there's still a long way to go in fully embracing the digital revolution into mining and metallurgical practice. Furthermore, as delivery on ESG expectations has become a critical imperative for operations leadership, it's essential that the SAIMM's agenda extends to embrace these topical issues. The SAIMM provides a unique forum for sharing leading practice that enables mining operations to be conducted with impeccable environmental and social responsibility. Pioneering standards of technical excellence and nurturing the development of technical professionals has never been more important. For our great South African mining industry to remain relevant in the modern world, it is critical that the SAIMM continues to fulfill a strong and relevant leadership role as it has throughout its 125-year history. In closing, I was reminded of Brigadier Stokes' simple and succinct ABC guide that is of enduring relevance for respectful engagement, and that is to be articulate, brief, and courteous. I trust distinguished members and guests that I've conformed with Brigadier Stokes' mantra in accepting the award instituted to honor his legacy in shaping the South African mining industry. Thank you very much.
In his absence, again, thank you to Mr. Vroneman, and also congratulations again to Mr. Vroneman for this, for receiving this award. Then over to you, Elias.
Thank you, Zaumia. And once again, congratulations to Mr. Nel Vroneman. It gives me great pleasure to announce the following awards, medals, and certificates. Arrangements will be made to have the medals and the certificates couriered to the recipients, and in some cases, they have requested the opportunity to receive them at various events when it is safe to do so again, COVID-19 permitting. We have the 50-year membership awards, starting from 1 July 1970 to 30 June 1971. We've got Christopher Davis, Patrick Hart, Christian Johannes Harting, Martinus Stephanus Mulder. We've got Christopher Roper, Donald James Rosewart, that's a long name, Donald Rosewart, Wally Waldeck, sorry about that. Okay, and then we've got Graham Walker. So efforts will be made to courier the certificates, and also to, if COVID permits, we'll be able to hand over the ceremony at next events. Okay. The next segment is the awards for the transactions published in the journal. This applies to all transactions published in the journal from March 2020 to February 2021 by members of the Institute. We've got the gold medals. The gold medals were awarded for papers that are of world-class standard and judged to be publications that will become key reference in the mining or metallurgy field of the future. For their transaction paper published in March 2020, entitled Adaptive Simultaneous Stochastic Optimization of a Gold Mining Complex, a Case Study. Congratulations to Zachary Levinson and Roussos, my apologies for this, I'm going to stumble, Roussos Dimitrakolopoulos. Congratulations, team, for the gold medal, your paper. The silver medal, with the next category is the silver medal. This applies to papers which make a major contribution to the professions of mining and metallurgy and to the prestige of the Institute. For his transaction paper published in June 2020 journal entitled The Development of a Time-Based Probabilistic Sink or Prediction Method for a Coal Mining in the Witbank and Highveld Coalfields by Nielen van der Merwe. Congratulations, Professor van der Merwe. For their transaction paper published in July 2020 journal entitled The Development of a Socio-Economic Strategic Risk Index as an Aid for Feasibility Assessment of Mining Projects and Operations. The congratulations to Antonio Neto and Francisco Medina. The members of the awards committee for the 2021 metallurgy papers agreed that there were no papers that met the standard that was set in previous years for the award of a medal. However, the committee would like to cite and commend the authors, T.M. Nemavola, T. Jose, and A.M. Habas-Craig for their paper entitled Accretion Formation on the Refractory Lining during the melting of ferrosilicon. As a result of their detailed experimental work and insightful analysis of the causes associated with excessive accretion formation on refractory lining, the authors have made recommendations that will undoubtedly assist in reducing the extent of this problem during the production of ferrosilicon. Congratulations to all the authors who have joined us online. Please allow me to present student prizes. The following students at the University of Witwatersrand, University of Pretoria, University of Johannesburg received the SAIMM Prestige Prize. These are students judged by their departments to be the best final year students for 2021. For the University of Witwatersrand, the metallurgy category goes to Sibongisen Mkota. Congratulations, Sibongisen. The mining category goes to Minenhle Kumalo. Congratulations, Minenhle. The University of Pretoria, the metallurgy category goes to Yati Matabadao. Congratulations, Yati. The mining category goes to Toveka Kleve Kulu. Congratulations from the SAIMM. At the University of Johannesburg, where the metallurgy segment goes to Alex Seya. Congratulations, Alex. The mining category goes to Ompemetse Muketsi. I hope I got your name right, Ompemetse. Congratulations. We have the University of Stellenbosch, the mineral processing category. There's no mining at the University of Stellenbosch, I believe. We've got Sune Anandel. Congratulations, Sune. Please allow me to present the IMPC Young Authors Award. The Young Authors Awards are given for the most outstanding papers presented where the main author is under 35 years of age at the date of the Congress. The IMPC awards 10 such prizes with the winners acknowledged formally at the IMPC Congress. Due to the cancellation of the IMPC 2020 Congress in South Africa, it was agreed that the winners should be acknowledged at the SAIMM AGM, and the awards will be presented at the 2022 IMPC Congress in Melbourne, Australia. We have for the recipients, we have Paulina Aravena from Chile. Congratulations, Paulina. We've got Michael Klikovitz from Germany. Congratulations, Michael. We have Tian Pont from South Africa. Congratulations, Tian. We have Daniel Lay from Australia, down under. Congratulations, Daniel. Diego Mesa from the United Kingdom. Congratulations, Diego. And Tulio Campos from Brazil. Congratulations, Tulio. In the next category, I am going to present the SAIMM 5-Star Incentive Program and Top Advertiser in the Journal. The SAIMM 5-star incentive program was introduced in 2015 to thank members who contribute to the growing membership of the SAIMM and to provide additional benefits to fellows and members of the SAIMM. I would like to announce the following winners. For the top 5 proposers is none other than your highly anointed Elias Matinde, followed by Vangani Nechifangoni. Kondwani Banda, congratulations. Russell Hines, congratulations, Russell. And Rodney Handamak. The top 5 referees of papers published in the journal goes to Marcus Hervé, congratulations, Marcus. William Joachim, congratulations, William. Leslie Cornish, congratulations, Leslie. Stephen Ruprecht, congratulations, Stephen, and Marek and Andrew as the last recipients for the top 5. Congratulations, guys. There's no single author who submitted and published the most number of papers in the journal, so there's no winner for this category. The top advertiser in the journal goes to Elbrook Mining and Mining Products. We would like to thank them for their continued support for the journal. The award was delivered and received by Mr. Gary Roche, who is the CEO of Elbrook Mining Products. Thank you and congratulations to Elbrook Mining Products. Please allow me to introduce the annual reports and accounts. I'm going to talk to call upon Von Juk to present the summary of his annual report. Over to you, Von.
Thank you, Elias. I appreciate that. I'm just going to pull up my notes. I hope we're on slide 1. Good afternoon, members and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to report on the activities of your institute over the past year. Moving on to slide 2. My efforts were mostly on changing how we operate to better serve the needs of both our members and the minerals industry. I started by questioning our purpose to reaffirm the relevance of SAIMM in the context of our changing environment. Final consensus from your council was that SAIMM exists to provide our members with a unique collaborative platform where they can develop as agile professionals in this rapidly evolving future of work in our sector. So in essence, we are about the continued professional development of our members. This development relies inter alia on us excelling in the following 5 areas: diversity and inclusion, young emerging professionals, professional ethics, technical programs, and most importantly, networking and forming strategic relationships for the benefits of our members. We know that we can deliver in this regard because we have a tried and tested ability to inform, educate, engage, and convene. And our recently released digital brochure was developed for the very purpose of communicating what we can offer our members and corporate partners. Our new mindset looks to further embrace technology for increased agility, greater flexibility, and enhanced performance. The next logical step is to redesign our website to tie in with our revitalized and realigned way of working. We already have a full online membership interface system in place, and the website will become increasingly user-friendly. It will remain rich with information, and it allows members easy access to the many benefits that SAIMM has to offer. We have also now started arranging meetings with various corporates to discuss the merits of partnering with us, and I'm pleased to say I've already got 2 set up. Slide 3. International professional relevance is about collaborating with other professional bodies to improve member and fellow recognition and to garner policy support. SAIMM is a member of the Global Minerals Professional Alliance, through which we connect our members to other GMP member countries. 3 online meetings were held during the year, with good progress reporting on working group activities. These activities have been around communications, new professionals, professional standards, conferences, and professional development. A global action on tailings task force was also established, and the SAIMM Tailings Committee is involved therein. The possibility of including more international organizations into the mix is being explored. Willem has taken over from Alistair McFarlane as the SAIMM representative on the GMPA. We also co-manage the SAM Code Standards Committee, which oversees the progress of SAMRAC, SAMVAL, SAMOG, and SAMESC. SAMESC being related to ESG issues. The agendas of their meetings during the year have inter alia covered issues around site visits during these COVID-19 restrictive times, the implications of the SK 1300 change in the States, the possibility of independent sign-offs for new listings, the integration of ESG requirements, improving corporates' involvement, updating of the SAMOG code, sensitizing geoscientists and engineers to the importance of ESG issues, and also updating the SAMESC guidelines. They've been busy. A number of workshops and presentations were delivered online, and we continued with our participation on CRISCO and IMVAL to ensure our influence over related international developments. Mr. Annie MacDonald will take over from Tanya Marshall as the SSE chairperson in December 2021. As a voluntary association, SAIMM also engages with the Engineering Council of South Africa to support policy development. EXA gazetted a board notice on the identification of engineering work in March 2021. There are queries around the reservation of work identified in the mining industry engineering discipline and how this might affect people registered as professionals with other councils or professional bodies. Don't have much more to report on that now, at this point. We had a lively meeting with the presidents of our kindred organizations, where Martinez van der Bank, Slono Malloy, Mike Valenta, Hiopalelo, Mokiti Lee, Tanya Marshall, and Raymond van der Berg all volunteered to be on a working group aimed at improving on how we can better collaborate with one another to avoid duplication of effort as we all progress our respective initiatives and projects in the country. The work of this team is scheduled to start at the end of August. We also had 2 very constructive meetings with the Minerals Council. And I thank Roger Baxter for that, on how we are going to work more closely together in terms of our respective initiatives and offerings. This again talks to non-duplication of efforts. The Minerals Council has committed to strengthening our long-standing partnership so that we can collaborate on our shared focus areas more regularly and more efficiently. Finally, we have had 1 meeting with the Department of Minerals Resources and Energy to solicit their support for the development of our student and community initiative. More on this to come in the coming year. Let's move to slide 4. I want to talk to our information resource portal. The brochure touches on this, where members have access to a library of training videos, our monthly technical journal, and various technical libraries, including onemine.org. Rodney Jones and Rosemary Falcon take precious time out to ensure the continued circulation of the journal and the quality of the associated technical papers. We are soon going to have to move our technical library to another location, and we'll be engaging on an alternative home for our books in the near future. Anyone with any ideas, give me a call. We have, through our recruitment portal, managed to link a few specialists with private companies and other institutions, such as legal bodies where expert witness advice was sought. Moving on to slide 5, again, a component of our brochure. When it comes to our convening capacity, all our planned face-to-face conferences and workshops were replaced with online events. This materially reduced the income that we normally rely on to complement our income from membership fees. None of our events were cancelled though, but many that could not go ahead as planned were either postponed to this coming year or converted to online events. Our technical program committee did deliver 48 events that were attended by 1,534 delegates, some 400 less than last year. Only a quarter of the attendees were members of our institute. The events comprised of 17 webinars, 8 online conferences, and 3 courses. We are aware of the importance of effective marketing and are looking to improve on our presence by using the various social media platforms more efficiently. It was business as usual for the 2 of our local branches, namely the Johannesburg and Northern Cape branches. But our regional branches in Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe were mostly inactive during this year due to the pandemic. Some progress was made on establishing a branch in Botswana. Moving on to the YPC, our Young Professionals Council continued with its mentorship program that links proteges with suitable mentors. Their efforts also concentrated on using webinars for technical presentations by young professionals for young professionals. These Talk Tuesdays, as they were called, included some interesting topics. The collaboration with the DMRE was initiated with further interaction planned during the coming months. Our DEMIC committee recently delivered their first ever conference in collaboration with Women in Mining South Africa. It was very informative with a number of excellent presenters from South Africa, Canada, Russia, and Sweden, focused on the issues of diversity and inclusion in our minerals industry. A new initiative aimed at linking unemployed graduates seeking early-stage internships with suitable environmental and community-related projects is taking shape. Its progress is being overseen by Bongi Mslefeng, who has had meetings with representatives from office bearers, our regional branches, the Young Professionals Council, and our DEMI committee on how they can work together in this regard. And I'm personally particularly excited about this. Moving on to slide 6, about membership. As at June 2021, we recorded that SAIMM had 2,931 members on the roll, of which 2,400 were paying members. This is slightly more than the 2,919 members that appeared on our books a year ago. Income from our membership fees remained much the same at 3.5 million. Our membership committee has established a special working group to incorporate into our membership base tomorrow's specialists and experts that our industry is likely to need to navigate green energy-related technologies and the challenges of environmental and social governance. We are collaborating with the West African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy and similar bodies in China with a specific purpose of increasing our membership base and our influence in the international arena. We also have our eye on Turkey in this regard. I'm going to touch on finances. William Jochen will shortly present the financial report, so I'm going to limit my feedback to the fact that we again made a loss and needed to draw on our savings to cover costs. This slide reveals the extent to which we have relied on such drawdowns over the past years. While the average amounts to almost 2 million a year, I believe that we'll be able to cover the shortfall as we adjust our revenue models to sort the online environment, and by securing firm corporate partnerships with companies working in our minerals industry. The solid performance by the markets, however, provide us with much needed investment income, and this effectively offset our losses over the past year. Council meetings. Our meetings were well attended, and I thank everybody for this, which allowed for timely decisions during the course of what has been a busy year. would like to sincerely thank all of the people serving on council, including observers and past presidents, whose wisdom and advice was very helpful, especially at some of the short notice and ad hoc meetings that I called for. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Fawn. Now I'm going to call upon William to present a summary of the financial report. Over to you, William.
Thanks, Elias. If you could move on to the next slide, which provides an overall summary. As Vaughan alluded to, it's been quite challenging, and particularly in the current with the current pandemic, we've had to change our operations quite significantly. So you'll notice a significant drop in revenue on the back of previous years of reductions in revenue. But because all the conferences have moved online, our cost of sales was also significantly reduced. And we've also made great strides to reduce our operating expenses. So as a result of that, our deficit is significantly less than it could have been at 2.7 million. And fortunately, our investments have actually done particularly well, and this is just due to the buoyant market that we have currently. So our net position is effectively a profit, taking those investments into account. Could you move on to the next slide, please? Thanks. So this just shows the trends in income over the past 5 years, a notable year-on-year decrease from 2018 to 2021. And of course, during the last year, you'll note that our TPC revenue or conference revenue was only 0.5 million due to the complete change in the way we've had to operate. And we're still working on ways of trying to realize revenue from online seminars and so on. So for the first time, our actually TPC revenue is significantly less than our subscriptions, which have remained fairly constant over the years. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, the cost of sales was also significantly lower because we didn't need to host any conferences. Everything was operated online, so that significantly reduced, and our operating expenses have been reduced significantly. So as you can see, there's a trend in reduction in costs over time, and particularly in the last year. Next slide, please. So our investments in the last financial year have performed very well in a very buoyant market. And our closing balance for our investments is 29.1 million. So it's quite encouraging to see our growth in investment. And this is despite the drawdown of 1.5 million, our investments have grown significantly during the last year. Next slide, please. Okay. So, this reflects our revenue and expenses for non-TPC activities. So, income from membership was 3.8 million. Expenses were about 7.6 million. Journals and advertising, we've received less revenue, but we've cut the journal costs significantly by the decision not to continue printing and posting journals to every member, so they're only posted on request now, and that's provided quite a significant reduction in our costs. We didn't host an annual banquet, and our branch activities were due to the pandemic were relatively quiet. We've also been able to make significant savings on rent, and thank you to the Chamber of Mining or the Minerals Council for allowing us to reduce our rental costs. Next slide, please. So I think under cash flow management, I think it's very important to note that the administration costs were very well managed, together with significant cuts that we implemented at the beginning of last year. Our debtors book was also looking lower, but we continue to have uncertainty in the team. In fact, it's much greater at the moment with movement onto online hosting of online conferences. So that is going to remain in place. So Vaughan talked about corporate partnerships, which is a major focus for the current year. And this is where we're hoping to make up some of the deficit. And we've targeted a break-even budget for next year. Next slide, please. So a special thanks to Vaughan, Isabel, and Gary, Zalmia, and all the members of serving on the TPCs, your guidance and leadership, and helping us to get through these turbulent times. And thanks to our auditors, Genesis Chartered Accountants, thanks to G. Camporagio from IFC Investments, who managed our savings, and which, as you saw, performed very, very well. A special thanks to Sam Muller, Dennis Mock, and Tessa, and all of the SAIMM staff for managing our accounts so well. And then may I please have a proposer and a seconder for the adoption of annual financial statements via the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaughan. Can we have a proposer, please? Via chat, proposer for the accounts. And seconder.
Elias, we have a couple of participants who have raised their hands.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, I can't seem to maneuver here. Did you?
I will do that.
Okay, so there is Shadvin Kalombo and Mark Mooring is seconded. So we've got a proposer and a seconder. Thank you, Vaughan. Over to you, Zelmia.
Thank you, Elias. Right. I can now start with our declaration of election of office bearers and members of council for the year 21-22. And I have great pleasure in announcing that in accordance with clauses 3.5, 5.1 and 5.2 of the Constitution, the retiring council has elected the following office bearers for the ensuing year. Our President, Isabel Geldenhuys, President-elect Zalmia Botha, Senior Vice President Willem Jochen, Junior Vice President Elias Matinde, Immediate Past President Vaughan Duke, and Honorary Treasurer also William Jochen. In terms of the election of ordinary members of council, I have to report that in terms of clause 3.2.7 of the Constitution and bylaw B 2.1, there were 14 vacancies, and the following members are now declared elected. Zore Fagre, Bekir Gensh, Katlego Letsualo, Setabile Madolo, Felix Mayanga, Tsepu Mola, Godnos Njowa, Bongi Nitsulengwe, Stephen Ruprecht, Michael Solomon, Sam Spearing, Simon Toes, Andrew van Sail, and Jean Walls. Congratulations. Then in terms of bylaw F 1.7 of the Constitution, the chairpersons of the branches are as follows. Donnie Jensen for Johannesburg, Nkoa Namate for Namibia, Jaco Mans for Northern Cape, Caesar Uludag for Pretoria, Alan Nesbitt for Western Cape, Darius Muma for Zambia, Clara Zadomba for Zimbabwe, and Christumini for Zululand. Then the chairperson of the South African National Council of Tunnelling, or SANCOT, is Mr. Ron Kluchik. These chairpersons will serve as ex officio members of council. Congratulations to them as well. Then in terms of bylaw I, which governs the Young Professionals Council, clause I 4.1 states that the affairs of the YPC shall, subject to the control of council, be managed by the YPC members constituted as follows. The chairperson, Adrian Chinava, vice chairperson, Anthony Mello, secretary, Kundwani Banda, treasurer, Adelaide Mohanedi, immediate past chairperson, Shepherd Majengwa. The chairperson and vice chairperson will represent the YPC on the SAIMM Council. Clause I 4.4.6 states that the YPC must consist of a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 18 members who are 35 years old and younger. The following members have been elected and ratified by Council: Connie Tijara, Tinashe Chikomo, RJ Kutsia, Unali Hall, Himezimbi Ngari, Katlego Kekana, Rodek Kimani, Cynthia Malachi, Graham Marsden, Vision Musipungura, Simone Naiker, Sie Nileku, Sancho Nyoni, and Daneo Rachidi. Congratulations to the YPC. Elias, I think it's now over to you for the rest of the announcements.
Thank you. Thank you, Zeromia. The following past presidents have signified their willingness to serve on the council for the ensuing year. We have Nick Baxter, Richard Beck, Roger Dixon, Henry James, Rodney Jones, Alistair McFarlane, Mzila Mtenjane, Cuthbert Msingwini, Selon Love, Jim Porter, Rams Ramhopa, Mike Rogers, Don Roswat, Gordon Smith, and Willem van Niekerk. Thank you very much. I would like to thank those past presidents who have indicated that they cannot serve on council for the next year for all their time, effort, and dedication in the past. I would also like to record our thanks to past presidents for their continued support. I congratulate all those elected, and I thank those who have agreed to serve another term of office. In this segment, I'm going to declare the honorary vice presidents of the SAIMM for the 2021-2022 session. The SAIMM has a long-standing arrangement of inviting presidents of the Minerals Councils of South Africa. This year it is Ms. Nolita Fakude as honorary vice president. Thank you very much. We also have the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Minister Gwede Matashe. Congratulations, sir. We have the Minister of Science and Innovation, Minister Blen Dibande. We have the Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister Ibrahim Patel. This, by invitation, will serve as honorary vice presidents for the SAIMM. These positions are intended to create closer collaboration between our organizations so that we may better serve the needs of our members, industry, and South Africa as a whole. In this segment, I'm going to propose that Genesis Chartered Accountants be appointed as auditors for the coming year. I also propose that the MH attorneys be appointed as honorary legal advisors. May I have a proposer and a supporter via chat, please? Okay, I have Johan. Thank you very much. And Russell Hines, thank you very much. The Outgoing Presidential Award, which is a commemorative plaque and marks Mr. Von Chuk's year in office, has been delivered to him. Over to you, Von, for your acceptance speech. Would you like to say something to us, please?
Thank you, Elias. Thank you very much for this award. But to be honest, it has in fact been my honor to serve you all as the president of your institute over the past year. The award, which is here in my office, Sam said I must show it to all of you, so I've done that, was handed to me by Sam. And when I look at it, I can't help but think of all the meetings, presentations, and phone calls, which I'm sure many of you have endured. As promised at the start of the period, office bearers have worked very hard to ensure that we remain useful and relevant to our members, our minerals industry, and the countries within which we all operate. I wanted to spend more time on highlighting the importance of ethics and ethical leadership during the course of my tenure, but this was not to be. The bulk of my attention was redirected on ensuring firm progress on the long overdue and necessary change within our institute that we have been talking about over the last few years. At this point, I'm pleased to note that we have firm traction with plans that are now taking shape. However, none of this would have been possible if it were not for the hard and diligent work of Sam Muller and her team. This team has adapted to a new way of working, which entailed moving away from working in silos to a more coherent, multi-skilled matrix-style approach. They are now able to more efficiently step in and support one another, which ensures continuity and higher levels of performance. Together, Gugu Charlie, Camila Jardine, Chapisu Letaku, Dennis Mokandisa, Portia Malachi, Zuliaka Malgas, Nazli Namdu, Kelly Mati, Prudence Tumaneng, Kiabatswe Shumba, and Solo Solo. All girls with one lad are who we rely on for our sustainable change. They have not missed a beat in attending to the usual order of business, while at the same time having to deal with the very real operational changes that were brought on by COVID-19. We had a very busy year, but at the same time needed to cut back materially on spending. Sam and her team did not receive increases. When Tato Letebele resigned, she was not replaced and her workload was somehow just absorbed. They also often worked over weekends and into the evenings to implement the changes that we called for. At times, they felt isolated, but regular wellness checks and proactive interactions helped them to establish a new normal that has now come into play. Roger Dixon, my mentor in times gone by, used to reflect on the difference between being involved as opposed to being committed. More than once I heard him say, the chicken is involved, but the pig is committed. Presidents and office bearers of the Institute will continue to come and go, but these individuals, Sam and her team, are in it for the long haul. I was involved, but they have committed, and I thank them very much for that. Speaking of cutting back, I missed our traditional annual budget banquet, which was not possible under the circumstances. But I was happy to forego the usual President's Farewell dinner, which I believe is not always necessary. I find it more necessary to sincerely thank all of the office bearers and council members for getting involved. Their ongoing advice, guidance, and support make a material impact on the decisions that need to be taken and on one's courage to implement change. Our meetings usually started with feedback around 4 initiatives. The first involved the Young Professionals Council working more closely with the branches to improve on our collective reach into the Southern African region and to progress projects suited to such collaborative efforts. My thanks to Bongi, Shepherd, and Darby for taking the lead here. The second area relates to the work of our Technical Program Committee, which is overseen by Isabel, Gary, and Zelmia, and many thanks to them. The third area involves Sam and Jean, who were responsible for changes in how our Secretariat operates. And many, many thanks for this. The fourth and most important area concerned our strategic realignment as it relates to our valuable proposition, marketing, and strategic partnerships. So many people are involved here, but I would personally like to thank Mike Solomon, Isabel Geldenes, Elias Matinda, and Alistair McFarlane for taking the load in this respect. As a country, we have faced much adversity over the past year, and while we need to work through these uncertain times, our industry seems to be doing well. I believe that given the many international commitments to carbon neutrality over the coming years, we are going to benefit from higher prices for some time still. I think this bodes well for all of us, and I wish all of you the very best going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Von, for a beautiful speech. And I would also like to thank you for your leadership during the most trying times for our institute. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to our new president. It is my pleasant duty to introduce you to Ms. Isabel Geldenes, and I'll read her curriculum vitae. Isabel was born in 1970 in Pretoria and spent most of her childhood in Clearview in Olifantsfontein. Her formative schooling years started at Olifantsfontein Primary School before completing a high school in Centurion in 1998. Isabel holds a BA degree in Chemical Engineering from the University of Pretoria and has completed a Master of Engineering degree in Metallurgical Engineering, which she got a cum laude from the University of Stellenbosch. She is a registered professional engineer and fellow of the SAIMM. During her final year in high school, Isabel was selected amongst many applicants to spend a gap year at the South African Women's Army College as part of the 1989 intake. She joined 220 young women in George for a year of military training, mainly focusing on leadership development. The year in George, very, very far away from family and school friends, laid the foundation for her lifelong passion for leadership development. As a fresh graduate from the University of Pretoria, Isabel almost pursued a career in polymer sciences research, but unfortunately, or fortunately for us, the CSIR opted to release her from her bursary obligations. This release culminated in her being appointed in Mintech's Pyrometallurgy division in March 1996. As an engineer in training at Mintech, Isabel discovered a passion for pyrometallurgy and was privileged to work with and learn from many leading experts within the industry. Mintech's Pyrometallurgy division supported the technical development and an in-depth understanding of the engineering and business principles of the metallurgical industry. At Mintech, Isabel developed expertise across various commodities, specializing in open bath smelting processes developing open bath smelting processes for ferrochromium, titaniferous magnetite, ilmenite, precious metals, ferronickel, and various waste materials, among many others. In 2021, Isabel started a new career as an independent consultant, but it still continues her association with Mintech as a consulting pyrometallurgist. Isabel represented Mintech at various conferences as a seasoned presenter with a passion for storytelling. She is the author and co-author of 19 conference and journal papers, over 80 technical reports, and inventor of several processes. Her involvement in the SAIMM stems from a passion for community development. Isabel believes that SAIMM offers professionals a unique opportunity to give back to community and to the country as a whole. In her early 40s, Isabel tackled and completed 3 Comrades Marathons and ran the Great Wall of China Marathon. And she believes in regularly challenging herself, both personally and professionally. In the last few years, Isabel has combined a love of running and the environment with plastic litter activism via blogging, which she translates as picking up litter while jogging. She never leaves for a run or a walk without a bag to pick up the litter. She shares a life with a soulmate, Carl Bergman, also a metallurgist. Together, they adore their brood of rescue cats and 2 German shepherds and love spending time in their garden or hiking in their local nature reserve. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to present to you Isabel Heldenes. Over to you, Isabel.
Thank you very much, Elias, for that kind introduction. Hope it should look like it did. So thank you very much to everyone for waiting for me to get to the presentation. I know that our AGM, every year you reflect on the past, and this year in particular was quite tough. So without further ado, I'm going to start my story for today, which I hope you guys enjoy with me as much as I enjoyed preparing it. So there's no doubt that the year that we've been through, or the 18 months at least, has been really a dark time for many people. And while humankind in general is remarkably resilient, many people are still struggling through really the worst of times. And while Charles Dickens's quote is probably overused, and I apologize for that, I just couldn't find anything that had both the darkness and the light in it, because in this time, it's sometimes really hard to contextualize your feelings. What do we feel in all of this really overwhelmingly large problems? How do you feel? How do you fit in? To me personally, you look at this, all the range of problems, social injustices to environmental calamities and poverty and unemployment and so forth. These are really stark realities that we deal with. So when I'm focusing today on history, I'd like to just contextualize it as underscoring that it's really about learning, and growth and learning. So, because if we want to change any of these mega-scale problems, it's only possible in the minds of people. And my favorite quote about that's often used in conservation is, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So as I attempt to help us venture forth and play our part as thoughtful, committed citizens to create a season of light and an age of wisdom, what can we learn from history? So a little preamble in terms of this is, for me personally, historical narratives and perspectives on metallurgical processes and how projects developed and how people solve problems really illuminated my thoughts. It's opened my mind to other ways of thinking, not the obvious ways of connecting the dots. So it's also historical metallurgical papers, and history is everything from yesterday backwards. A rich collection of case studies can be found. So if you can use these models and lessons and caveats to help you develop your thinking and your practice as a metallurgist or a mining engineer or geologist. So also always to remember is that we are standing on the shoulders of people who lived just like us, complex lives. It's all relative. And then the final point, bringing all together is that we live in this big data generation. Everything is just about big data, and it's becoming a fundamental way of us understanding the world around us. But I really like the idea or the definition of data sciences as a way of knowing. Because data is not necessarily knowledge, it doesn't necessarily lead to knowledge. And I think that we all know you have to organize it or categorize it in some way to make it relevant, and then information that can then be used to enable knowledge, of which learning is the protagonist. So relevant knowledge for me connects things. So this is where I think the value of history lies, is helping us to connect dots helping us understand what is important among a deluge of options in our big data. So apart from everything that I've already said, I think the one thing that's really very a big difference in our society is the pace of things. If you look at innovation cycles, they're much faster and shorter, and the pace of acceleration is increasing as well. So what we are dealing with is incredible time constant, or very, very increasing time constant, and multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary systems approaches are non-negotiable. We all know that. I don't have to preach it, but we've moved beyond, you know, like sitting in your office and plotting a couple of 10 data points on a graph. But the fundamentals haven't changed. You know, the properties of the mineral that we're putting into a processing plant. So if you're digging at the rock face, or whether you're at the processing plant or some way contributing to it, always remember that your physical properties, your chemical properties, those don't change. And that is one of the things that's really important to me. We sometimes confuse our ability to create data with creating information, and there is not necessarily a link. So there are so many models that we create, very fancy, complex models that we create, but they're based on a lot of physical properties. And if your physical property is not well understood or poorly understood, then the model becomes incredibly complicated with a lot of constraints. So you have to tie a lot of constants in it, or empirical data, and it can only be used in a very narrow band. So what and documents that we talk about, they were looking at their futures. So from my point of view, the SAIMM has 127 years of history. And I've looked at it, and we talk about one mine, Vaughan also referenced it. Just as an SAIMM member, you have access to one mine under your library, and you can search over 2 million pages, just mind-boggling, of publications. We have also the technical library, who stores a wealth of South African historical and mining and metallurgy history. And then the SAIMM journal. I mean, we underestimate the amazingness of our journal. If you go onto the journal site, you'll see there's an open access statement, which I really like, is that it's immediate open access to information, to the data that's published, to support a greater global exchange of knowledge. I think that's a beautiful sentiment. So in our role as exchangers of global information, the SAIMM is definitely contributing tremendously. So one very big connectedness story, I love things connecting, as you've already noticed, is that I realized about a decade ago, I read the introduction to the pretty widely cited Steinberg et al. Paper that's about the history and development of the process at Untitled Steel. In the introduction, literally the first sentence, the flow sheet was developed in early 1960s based on the research done by Dr. Willem in 1949. This immediately intrigued me because I didn't know who Dr. Blayloch was. So I delved into it and I found the paper, and I read all 41 pages of it, which is essentially, you know, a shortened thesis. But it highlighted to me how connected we all are through mining and metallurgy. Here I was thinking about the best way to comprehensively process the bushveld complexes, titaniferous magnetite. And nearly 100 years ago, Dr. Blayloch was thinking about the same thing. He started as early as 1934, actually, and was interrupted by this big thing called the World War II. So the same thing is happening to us. COVID-19 is interrupting our lives, our research, our problem solving almost as much. We just have to, it just gave me appreciation of how things are different, but also the same and complex. So just to introduce Dr. Blayloch as a sidebar, he's really worth knowing. In context of today's, you know, handing out both the Brigadier Stokes Award and also talking about past presidents, he was really the one who said it's in the minds of men that problems are solved. and its ability mankind to think. It's really worth noting that the little picture on the left is actually available if you go online and, on the journal, and it's from the minutes of the AGM in 1981. So Dr. Blaylock was actually only the second awardee of the Brigadier Stokes Award. And so coming back to one of my favorite topics is the smelting of titaniferous magnetite. So when you read or you do a bit of research and read other papers and current papers, there's 6 papers that you will probably find in every single person's list of references. So there's a little bit of laziness. I think it's easy to list the top hits, but it's also because these papers were landmark papers, relative to what it is. So what's the interesting timeline is you've got 1949 and sort of to 1969, when basically the Highfield steel process was well described, and the slag was evaluated. And then in 1975, this US Geological Survey professional paper was published on terms of vanadium in bearing titaniferous magnetite deposits. Still widely referenced. There's updates, but it's very widely referenced. The same for the 85 paper about the nature and origin of these ores. And then the most famous paper about vanadium is probably the Roerman paper, which you get in the reference list of every single paper written in the last 25 years about the topic. And then just quickly, the Kelly and Steinberg papers are basically the only official formal publications about those 2 processes for smelting. So in the late, sort of mid to late 2000s, before the teens, there was an emergence of Chinese publication suddenly about the comprehensive processing of titaniferous magnetite in China, where everything is processed in blast furnaces. So they have a bit of a challenge because they have to blend it down, the titanium content, to be able to process it. But this means there's only 2 now that Eiffel Steel is no more with us, there was only 2 operations that smelted it as electric smelting. One was in South Africa, and the other one was in New Zealand, of course. So both operated with a fluxed bath, so the slag is diluted. So what you have in this complex system is titanium that stays in the slag, and selective reduction of carbon to get vanadium and iron to collect predominantly to the metal. Some vanadium stay behind, the recoveries are not as good as iron. So you have these opposing forces, and because of the way that the blast furnace, electric blast furnaces operate, huge dumps of environmentally unhealthy slag dumps are being created. Not just the famous one in South Africa, where Eiffel Steel was operating for almost 50 years, but in China and Russia, the same thing is found. Just to give you a kind of concept, the blast furnace slag dump in the late 2000s was about 70 million at one site, million tons, and was growing at a rate of 3 million tons. So all of this is all this connectedness that I'm talking about. So my next journey started with the unusual and impressive low-felt iron making history. So I started off thinking about Dr. Blaylock and his journey, and then I stumbled across the fact that South Africa has a very unique iron making history in the low-felt. Around Phalaborwa, there is a significant magnetite deposit, as most of you know, that is also high in titanium relative. This challenged the art of the Bloomery furnace operators because titanium is viscous. So you can imagine a very short shaft, about a 1 meter, is a precursor to what really is a cold blast furnace and then currently a blast furnace. And for them to be able to make iron, firstly they had to add fluxes. So that's one of the things they introduced. So a little photograph here is of an actual archaeological finding near Phalaborwa from a photo by Killick. So nowhere on the record is there really a recorded use of magnetite to make iron apart from this example of the low-felt. So these guys were pretty decent, and they realized that, first of all, most iron Bloomery iron workers and Bloomery furnaces used sort of the hydroxide iron minerals, which as you heat it up, starts decomposing. The chemical water is unbound and creates pores, which makes the reaction for the CO to access these little pores much easier. And then as a result, reduction is relatively fast. So in Lowveld, we don't have that luck. There's no weathered deposits. That's all mostly magnetite and massive magnetite. And then the lumps of magnetite, comparatively to these lateritic or weathered ores, will all would reduce much slower for the same size of lump. So they, in the Lowveld, early minerals processing guys, they started grinding the magnetite. So you can actually, to this day, go around Palabora sites, there's hundreds of them, with these little grinding hollows. And if you take a magnetite, you can still recover little magnetite grains from these hollows. So everywhere else in the world, if magnetite was used, it was recovered from either riverbeds or the beaches. And that's what they call black sand. So again, the connectedness. And New Zealand Steel actually processes black sand from the beaches. So it's not ilmenite sand like we know here in South Africa, but it is a magnetite rich with some vanadium and titanium, a little bit lower, much lower than South Africa's Bushveld complex, but yet the same thing. So on the right, you can see pictures of the literally black sand. So ancient and modern metallurgy is thus not so different. So on the left, this is a micrograph of a slag sample that's basically 1,000 years old. And if you look at the slag sample, you'll see the areas indicated, you know, the light gray is the matrix of low titanium magnetite, the exalted ulvaspinel, and the darker gray with the arrows, and then the white is the metallics, and then the black is cavities, as the CO2 gas couldn't escape from the sticky slag. So clearly a complex system because of the titanium in particular. And then I stumbled upon a paper in 2005, Manamela and Pistorius, who says, titled Ore Size Affect Direct Reduction of Titaniferous Magnetite, which we already know is true because the iron workers 1,000 years ago knew that too. So anyway, but fundamentally, the process was now better understood, and they described it beautifully, and you can see the similarity in the description in terms of the ulvaspinel that is exalted, and that unlike the lateritic hydroxide minerals, the reduction happens from the outside in. So it's a sort of shrinking core principle until you've got. The other interesting thing is always to remember is that it was really such a nice way to think about it. But if you have 6 moles of iron ore in a titaniferous magnetite, 4 moles you can metallize or make metallic iron in direct reduction of 4, and other 2 moles are basically stuck with the spinel. And it's really nice to see how this ties up, and you see exactly the same mechanism in the slag from the Bloomery furnaces, which has also some form of direct reduction. So it's not so different. So the next case study is the Albania Ironworks. And if you ask me why you've never heard of it, because actually they never made any usable iron. So they built a cold blast furnace in 1971, tried for a couple months to run it, and it failed. They never made a single ton of iron product. So very interesting. I stumbled across a thesis by Brothers, and he described in much detail the management problems. In those days, an ironworks was usually owned by a couple investors, even the money men. Interestingly, in the Albania case, they were struggling so much that over a short period in 1771 and 1772, 3 of the 5 investors tried to run the plant. So management problems clearly also contributed, another lesson to be learned. In 1882, analysis of the Martin mine, where the ore for this plant came from, revealed a high titanium content. And the ill-fated ironworks clearly hadn't known this. In 1977, it was further established that the mine actually contained ilmenite apatite and rare earth oxides. In 1999, there were slag samples recovered. So on the photograph, I love the description. It says, slag is described as presenting with mottled grey areas, glassy regions, and with large iron pearl visible to the naked eye. Clearly, that states the whole problem. So the title, carried on at very great expense and never produced a profit, is a very good quote from an affidavit about the management of the ironworks. So at the time, this quote I really thought echoed with me. In the 18th century, iron blast furnaces required enormous capital investment, both for construction and acquisition of land, required large crews of skilled and unskilled labor, and operated continuously for months at a time. They consumed tons of raw materials, which had to be delivered at a relatively tight schedule and produced tons of cast iron a day. So anybody in production will tell you that that's exactly still true. The interesting thing about this is that they really did some due diligence. On the surface, they spent 7 years to find the site. So they traveled widely. They selected, and it looked like they did a good job because they found a site near a river for their water wheels. It was a well-wooded area, so they could manage their charcoal. And in those days, those guys managed their woods like forestry today. They had 20 and 30-year long-term plans. And then, of course, the abundant iron ore, yet they never made any profit. So the 2001 review revealed principally the high titanium content of the feed material. So while they did everything right, the one main thing that they didn't look at was, is the slag suitable for the process we're going to use? Or is the ore suitable? So the other sad story is because of the appetite. So even if they had made deductions like our intrepid low-felt iron makers, they would have still had too much phosphorus in their metal and it would have been brittle. So they wouldn't have been able to use it for cast iron like they had planned. So I hope the lessons are clear. Never ever assume your ore is suitable. So the other lesson that I really want to share today is that diversity is always best. Yes, I started off with saying we have this amazing record of metallurgical publications in the SAIMM and one mine and similar or like-minded institutes and journals. What I've learned on my journey, especially around titaniferous magnetite, is that there's non-traditional information that could really illuminate your thinking and your practice. For example, also don't discard the older stuff, like I said with the 1949 paper by Dr. Blaylock. But I found a 1913 publication from the Interior Bureau of Mines in the US, where the author Singewald describes in much detail the potential for electric smelting for titaniferous magnetite. And it was incredibly insightful for the time that it was written. And it actually really kicked off my journey. The next is to think about Faculty of Department of Anthropology, the Journal of Nuclear Instruments and Methods of Physics Research, the Journal of Archaeology, where I learned that archaeometallurgy is a real thing. And this all enhanced my story, my understanding of this incredibly. So the story of titaniferous magnetite reminds me of two quotes by Sir Francis Bacon. And I like the way that he sits in his statue of thinking. So he that will not apply new remedies must expect new evils, for time is the greatest innovator. And nature to be commanded must be obeyed. And in the power of what we work in nature, it's always must be obeyed. So also the whole story actually is coming to the final end. I didn't want to keep us too long today. But I think if you take anything away from today, is that we don't see the things as they are, we see the things as we are. So it's really important to read through these papers and it changes you. So I feel like reading these fantastic publications historically changed me and my perspective. So when you look at a tree or you look at a mineral, you look at a process, you look at a problem, your way of thinking about it can change. And history is an powerful tool for that. Then in this year, 2021, one of the people that I really admire unfortunately passed away. Professor Bob Scholes inspired me in so many ways. through his presentations and the way that he spoke about it. So one of his quotes that I would like to read is, he said, "You ask me why it's important that we restore. The reason is simple. The world is now full. There is no excess space. We have to restore to get back to an ability to exist on the planet. You can't manage the world species by species. It can't be done because people have tried. You end up with irreconcilable trade-offs. So who said, for example, that the elephant is more important than the grass it eats? So if you stand back and say no, that they both interact within a complex ecosystem, it's the ecosystem we have to protect. And the global ecosystem contains people. So you have to treat this as a coupled social, ecological system. And I think that there is nothing more true than that coupled social, ecological system in the mining and metallurgy industry. So everything that we talk about, that we do, how you read, always keep that in mind. So in conclusion, and it's a long conclusion, so I apologize, I think history can change who we are, so that how we look at things. And that's why I thought about talking about this today, and as it's just an introduction. The history helps you to look at that engineering problem solving in the broader social environmental context. And I used Professor Bob Scholes as an example. He also inspiredly often said we must stop talking amongst ourselves. In the mining and metallurgy professionals, we engage so easily with each other because we understand our language. But it's much broader. That society, to achieve a balance in society and in the environment, we need to talk broader. And I think that's one of the steps that we as a SAIMM is taking to bring different kind of skills into the institute, so we can talk less to ourselves. I think also probably tying a lot very strongly into where we are going with all our ESG initiatives is that we have to start learning to make ethical choices, because a lot of the choices have incredibly long-term outcomes. And then appreciate. There's so many things to appreciate, to be grateful for. We live in this era of incredible data science and data tools and masses of data. I think appreciate the people who thought about digitizing a lot of publications, even of the 70s and 80s, before this digital era where your paper gets published with a DOI number almost 3 days after it's loaded. Appreciate the idea of open access, where we share and create knowledge. And then finally, appreciate Google, because it wasn't this easy 20 years ago, trust me. And finally, I think give credit. Every time somebody has a great idea, give credit and build and improve on it. So if your eyes are opened, you'll see the things worth seeing, Rumi said. I say, if your mind is opened, you'll know the things worth knowing. So while we seek the highest standards for how we operate as mining and minerals professionals, we are most of the time just the 6 blind men experiencing the elephant. Progress comes from speaking to each other, networking, attending technical events, reading technical publications. And because you never know when you can meet the person who's touching the tusk, or the ear, the trunk, the body, or the tail, keep it up and keep networking, because that's how you learn, and that's how you learn what the elephant really looks like. I thank you very much. I finally just would like to thank Carl, who's my rock. It's my privilege to share this planet with him. He always supports me and my dreams, no matter how radical or out there they are. And also in the vastness of space and immensity of time, I think everything is just bearable because of love. So thank you to all my family, my friends, my ex-colleagues, and also friends from Impc and throughout the industry who supported me over the last 25 years to be the person that I am today. Couldn't be without any one of you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Isabel, Madam President, for reminding us about the importance of history in our modern data-centric world. The knowledge that we have gathered over many years is essential to provide context and validity to algorithms and interpretation of vast quantities of data. was an insightful talk, and I agree that the SAIMM has a major role to play in the dissemination of this knowledge. And I'm looking forward to continuing working with you in your new role as president over the next year. Next to Vaughan, our outgoing president, thanks for your leadership over the last year. As you're all aware, we're going through a major transition, and this requires new thoughts and approaches. And Vaughan has set direction and driven the process while actively seeking advice and support from the group, and we'll continue the journey. Thanks to the Office Bearers, Council, YPC, all the committees and referees for taking the time to serve our institution and contributing valuable ideas and suggestions to ensure that the SAIMM continues to be relevant. Thank you to Sam and our awesome team for doing the hard work of organizing our events, managing our publications, coordinating our committees and membership, essentially keeping the institution functioning while adapting to the many new changes that we have imposed upon you. Lastly, but most importantly, I would like to thank you, our members, for your participation in SAIMM activities and contributing articles to our journal. And thank you for attending the AGM today and listening to our story. So with that, I declare the AGM closed. And at this stage, it's customary to invite members and guests to adjourn to the adjoining room for refreshments. Today, I would like to invite you to have refreshments in the comfort of your own home. And with that, I'll say goodbye. Thank you.